This is day 4 of the June 91 7-day retreat in Springwater. Here are some of the questions I wrote down. Yesterday you brought up the question whether one needs to take time out and find a special environment to do meditation. I feel that a corporate environment with all the pressures of time, hierarchy, politics, profit motive everywhere is not a good place for doing contemplative work and reaching a place of deep quiet. This was said in connection with that often it is said that one can do this work anywhere. It came up in a group. Someone else said, I find that working all day long on problem solving keeps the brain churning constantly in that activity, not slowing down for 1 minute. Do you have to understand all the different parts of the personality or ego structure? Or do we need to see the whole thing? What does it mean, seeing the whole thing? I feel I'm making an effort or trying to listen. Does it take trying? Does it take an effort to listen? If our psychological problems cannot ultimately be resolved through thinking, what resolves them? What has brought me to meditation is a yearning I have had for a long time to lead a fulfilled life. I have come to meditation because I want to change myself. If this motive wasn't there, and a belief in the possibility of change, I probably wouldn't meditate. Somehow I believe or have a sense that we are all of one body. Can sitting quietly help us to see that directly? In sitting, I find that there are moments in which I create myself. An image of myself comes up, and then again there is a gap before the next image comes up. Is this so for other people too? Yesterday also, we never touched upon this whole complex of questions about hope. Don't human beings need hope? Or isn't that the human thing to have hope, which keeps us alive? Projecting goals and the constant movement toward something, being seen as something positive, helpful in being alive, living long. And always moving toward something one wants to have, and then when one has it, it doesn't mean anything. And the movement toward something starts up again. Or as one person expressed it yesterday, in sitting quietly looking, at least during the early days of a retreat, there is nothing but wanting. Wanting all the time, from moment to moment. Something. How do we start with all of this? There was also someone who said, I don't think I've really ever been loved in all my life. Ever. I don't know, honestly, what love is. And someone else said, I don't think I've ever allowed myself to be loved. I don't really know what it means to be loved. I have never allowed it to happen. And right now a biblical quote comes to mind, which I don't remember properly, but it's something like, now all that remains is faith, hope, and love, but love is the greatest among the three. And I've wondered for some time whether faith, hope, and love belong into the same pot, are of the same essence. Faith that there is a possibility to change, that there is something beyond myself, a God or a truth, a true nature, the sacred, wholeness. That faith which depends on, doesn't it, on idea, on having heard this before, or maybe it is already in our collective unconscious, the idea, the concept of the eternal, the sacred, something beyond myself. And hope, clearly involved with idea, image of what could be other than what is. A better life, a better state of being, liberation or freedom, these ideas, and the hope that eventually I will come across that, upon it. So hope and faith very closely intertwined with thought and idea, lore, collective unconscious, religious teaching, spiritual teaching that one has heard, read, which keeps the movement going, the movement of thought toward that, and maybe thought translated into some kind of activity, practice, path to get to what one has faith in or what one is hoping for, to meditate on something as a first initial practice to quiet the mind, because it seems so obvious that a chaotically occupied, churning mind is in no shape to come in touch with the beyond. So one feels and tells oneself and is told, whoever said this quote, also mentions love. I don't know what's before and after this quote, but love is singled out as the greatest of the three, or maybe I don't have it quite right. Shall we ask? This question has come up before, and it's coming up quite a bit in this retreat, what love is. Whether it is knowable, experienceable, gettable, obtainable, practicable. One person told me, or two, of having practiced loving kindness meditation, which is thinking, so the person told me, thinking of someone one has very strong antipathy for or hatred, and seeing whether one can develop loving feelings toward that person. Is love practicable? One asks oneself this question. Knowable? As an image, I can have an image of being a loving person. I remember once still being in the Zen center and on a holiday, which was an open house. People were coming to the center, neighbors and whoever was interested. And my job was to show the people the room in which there was a statue of Kanon, which is a bodhisattva or goddess, whichever way you want to term it, of love and compassion. And several people remarked in being shown that statue that they had a feeling for that because they also were practicing or doing loving work. One person was a social worker. Said, I'm doing compassionate work. I'm a little bit like that, one woman said. I also practice love. I wondered at the time how one could ever say that of oneself. That one is a loving person. That must be connected with idea and image, mustn't it? The image of oneself as a loving, compassionate worker. The idea, I must be, and fulfilling that image idea, or trying to fulfill it. And not aware of the self-consciousness of it all. Which brings its problems. Usually, the problems manifest if I do loving work, compassionate work, and know I am doing it, trying to fulfill an image, to be loving and compassionate, and somehow this loving compassion is not appreciated by the recipient. The person says, leave me alone, don't touch me. Or is in some other way critical of what I'm doing. Will there be love and compassion left for that person? Or will they be hurt? Feeling misunderstood? In talking with a participant about, she said, I don't believe I've ever been loved. And there was not any criticism of the parents. Parents did what parents do, but she was wondering whether that was love. We assume, and often don't even want to touch, that collective image of a mother's or mother and father's love for their child. Sometimes if it's questioned, there seems to be some subtle or gross outrage that one could think that a mother caring for her baby or father don't love it. But here someone said, I don't remember being abused or anything, but I don't feel I was loved. I don't know what love is. And some people say, I don't think I have ever loved. I also don't know what it is. We have instilled in us so many stereotypical ideas about love. And of course, particularly in this country, although others are trailing close behind, there is this whole greeting card romance in which the word love abounds. Now this stamp we have, a world in a heart shape with the word love on it. It just came out in this country after carpet bombing. Because with this idea of love, let's be loving, and voicing it in romantic terms or sentimental idiom. With this goes the compartmentalization of the mind, the brain, keeping this kind of love in one place and war, which is necessary to teach someone a lesson or deliver someone from oppression, or to win a victory, to vindicate the image of the country. That is all different compartments, and they do not touch each other. The brain can operate in that fashion. It does most of the time, which is amazing to come upon as one watches more sensitively oneself and each other and others talk. How we can talk in one breath about love and war and killing and righteousness and justice and the unfortunate injustice in this world, all separate items. This is how we look at things. And as it's also been asked several times during this retreat, can one see the whole, or are we condemned or bound to just see the parts and live in parts, feeling apart oneself? Coming back to this question of what is love. When a baby is conceived and growing, there are all kinds of changes taking place in the mother's body. Chemical changes. To take care that there will be proper child care. A feeling for holding the baby, for nursing it, for protecting it and taking good care of it. And maybe even without that chemical process that can also happen in a man, to have some strong feeling for this little creature. I remember my husband was never more tender and sensitive and in tune. But when we adopted this little baby, carry it, take care of it, see that he doesn't cry, walk it, cuddle it, rock it, try to feed it. But the hormones abate, the baby doesn't remain small and helpless and cuddly. It begins to assert its own wants and wills. And parents begin to tear their hair out, either in public or in private. And demand daycare centers. Said to be one of the big coming up political issues will be who will promise the most daycare centers. Where did this motherly love go? I'm not criticizing a mother being at her wit's end with one or two little children at home. Demanding. We have lost that community, or in ancient times an extended family with aunts and grandmothers around it. Or a small community where children are taken care of even if the mother isn't there all the time. So it's not a critical remark, although I'm also wondering about this, what goes on in a human being having just conceived and given birth and nursed a little baby, to leave it with someone else. Where is that love that we so cherish and almost keep as a sacred, untouchable thing? Mother's love. Or can one question that? Not cynically, but actually, whether it ever was there. Other than in this, again, this is not said in any derogatory way, in this animal-like way. Actually, it's not a derogatory term at all, because animals have it all above human beings in taking care of their little ones. Above meaning there is complete care and no idea of a career beckoning outside of the nest. I don't want to be hard on women, please understand me right. It goes for both genders. Because a man can't take it at home either if he has to stay home for a week while the woman is away. And there are exceptions to this. So the idea of needing to fulfill oneself, needing to express oneself, needing to whatever, prompts us to go into careers and climb hierarchies, ladders, become somebody. That urge, is that stronger than love? Does it have any love in it? The love for the companion, the spouse, the husband or wife. What is that? Shall we look at it all? One person this morning said, I realize this work means leaving no stone unturned. That's what it means. Exactly that. No anchor that isn't lifted and looked. What is it anchoring in? So this love for each other, praised in poetry, drama, legend, since time immemorial. What is that? There, a German medieval poem comes to mind. I'll translate it, probably poorly as I go. It's something like that. I am yours and you are mine. Be certain of that. It is locked up in the heart, and the key has been lost. So we will stay in there forever. We had to learn that as one of the beautiful poems about human love. Locked up together. And the key lost. No way out. I remember my family, the word attachment, Anhänglichkeit, was always of a deep value. I could feel this when I was very young, to be anhänglich, to be attached. My parents were very fond of people writing to them, expressing their attachment to them. And they would write back. So I learned that very early, that to be attached is of value. It expresses love. That is the deeply cherished idea, isn't it? To find someone who will be there forever for me, who will hold on to me and I will hold on to him forever. Attached, not abandoned, never to be abandoned again. Maybe one has felt abandoned by the mother when the next child arrived, and the next and the next. There was very little love to go around. That's what how many people put it, coming from large families. One person said it was hardly anything by the time it got around to me. And now to find that summum bonum, where one will be special to each other and have each other, possess each other, own each other, cling to each other. The Bible talks about that, doesn't it? That's to cling to each other, husband and wife, as a positive value. By which I'm not saying if the brain is doing its usual thing of every once in a while flipping to the opposite and then interpreting that what is being said here means that one should leave each other. I'm not saying that. We're just looking at clinging to each other, attaching to each other. Why? We're not leaving any stone unturned. We're asking, why attach to another person and want that person to attach to oneself? Although sometimes it doesn't go both ways. One wants to cling to a person, but the other person may like one around, but doesn't want to be clung to. That's where already heartache starts. When there's a lack of mutuality in this clinging. But why do we cling to another person or feel the need to cling? To have him or her as my own, locked up in my heart. One person very early in the retreat, he told me that a relationship has just ended and all the pain coming up during the sitting, and in that pain discerning the pain of having been abandoned, that strong feeling, I have been abandoned again, and linking it up with earlier feelings of abandonment, loneliness, now overwhelming during the sitting, feelings of loneliness, pain of abandonment, and wondering if I got married, would things improve? This is, of course, marriage has been established, so families would stay together. I haven't studied sociologically, historically, the history of family. But the possession of each other, the sealing of that bond, probably had great social and economic value. Of course, the man could do his own thing, the woman couldn't. She got a scarlet letter. So, to have a unit is good for having children, for having some stability for the family, economically. It can also become a power trip for the gender and power, which usually is the male, to own his female or females, and then do as he pleases. It's all there historically in the collective unconscious and conscious. Not that only the man goes off on his own out of wedlock, since it's no longer punishable, which it used to be. It's amazing to think, isn't it, that women used to be punished for this, maybe put in jail. Now both go on their way in and out of wedlock. But still with that yearning to find someone ideal, someone matched to me, that I could live with, build a nest with. Why this yearning for attachment? Why this need for clinging to another human being? We're just talking about that right now. There's clinging. If one isn't clinging to another human being, one may be clinging to career or possessions or fame or position or whatever. But right now we're looking at this. Maybe if one looks at one thing so thoroughly, so completely, so deeply, one can see the whole thing. Why this clinging? Where does it come from? Out of what does it arise? The need for someone to support me, to comfort me, even to own me, and me owning him or her. Out of what does this need arise? Will one sit quietly with that question, or walk quietly with it? if it is at all a problem, which it seems to be for so many human beings, maybe not today, but tomorrow. Maybe not today, but yesterday it was. And not to use loaded emotional words or emotionally loaded words to give oneself answers. It is because I want love or I need to love. Because we're questioning that stone too. We're turning it over. What does love mean? Owning, clinging, possessing, controlling. The need for that, the need, can need ever produce love, neediness for being taken care of? Can that produce or go hand in hand with love? Or is this an entirely different process? We're asking. Needing to feel fulfilled, that is an answer often given through another human being. I remember that myself, that was my need. To feel fulfilled through another human being and to fulfill another human being, to be needed by him. That's what I was on the lookout for, someone who I felt would need me. So there would be some usefulness to my life, some meaning to it. And never really touching tenderly, deeply, this whole thing of insufficiency that all of us carry deeply, deeply ingrained. Don't we? I'm not speaking right now of a moment of there being no self-involvement. Sometimes people say, why do you talk about this stuff? Because there can be freedom from all of that in a moment of openness. Right now, we're not looking at a moment of openness, but can we look openly, unbiasedly and fearlessly at this feeling of insufficiency, lack, neediness, anxiety about abandonment. That is deeply lodged in human beings, who all of us were born helplessly. Of parents who may not have been able to love, to take care, to be there every moment. So, will one be with this if it comes up? The fear of abandonment, the ache of loneliness, the deep-seated insufficiency, feeling of lack, unfulfilledness, emptiness. Some people say an empty, shallow pit. Or will one go on one's habitual escapes into goals and movement towards something, having hope for fulfillment in the future? See, we hope for fulfillment in the future and work toward it, think toward it. But we're carrying all the while this pit of unfulfillment, of anxiety, of insufficiency with us if it hasn't been looked at completely. Not just thought about. The questions come up, how can we tackle our problems if thinking is not the way? And right now in talking is all kinds of thought evoked, remembrance, and that is helpful to use in looking, thinking. But to really be with a problem completely, fear, ache, pain, insufficiency, longing, yearning, grasping, that we come to a point, don't we, where we can't think about it anymore. We have to experience it, be with it, let it reveal itself in its action. Or reaction. And to wonder about it, what this all is, that moves us so deeply, so darkly, so unconsciously, until we give it some attention. Then unconsciousness is no longer unconsciousness. It becomes conscious. It comes to light. And the question, well, how long do I do this before I become sick and tired of looking? I've watched all my life, but nothing changes. Right now we're also questioning this quality of watching, because one can deceive oneself in thinking about oneself very clearly and not seeing a thing that's happening this moment, namely thinking about oneself, about poor me and my fate of abandonment, loneliness, insufficiency, and thinking about how I can get out of it, finding the ideal mate and attaching, if not to the mate, then to the thought about the mate, and never looking at this soil from which this need arises, being in touch with it completely, not separate from it, because we're not a separate observer, we're not a separate watcher. We are all of that: insufficiency, fear, longing, desires, attaching, and then fearing to lose what we have attached to. This is what we are. Without imposing greeting card imagery upon ourselves, let's look at what is going on. But the quality of the looking, can that be unbiased, unprejudiced, open, willing to feel the pain that's there? And not, see, this looking directly or feeling, listening directly, the senses are not separate from each other. When there is this inward sounding, inward, whatever word you wish to use, the word is not what is going on. An inwardness, inwarding, not to the exclusion of the birds, they're there. In this inwarding, there is no demand of results. Because then there would be a compartmentalization again. All right, I'll do this, but I expect that. I will do it for a while. If I feel there's a change, I'll be rid of this feeling of fear or abandonment. One does not know what the results will be, if any. One doesn't know. Then the mind is not divided in looking inwardly, listening inwardly. It does not demand anything. It's just what's there. And light or awareness, revealing what is there. Not my awareness, it's awareness. Not mine. Not yours. If such awareness comes into being, that can reveal what's there, there's no sense of separation, and there's no sense, I wish it was different, it should be otherwise, it should change. That's conflict again, do you see that? No, unconditionally, what's there? The ache, the pain, the longing, and to just that, the whole process. No one judging it, no one trying to do something about it. Interfere with it, block it, be free of it. No conflict whatsoever with what's there, what is revealed to be there. See, when there is no division between someone who has this fear and then the fear that I have to look at, I have to try to be with or make an effort, when that is not there because that's just what is, then there is no insufficiency. There is no dis-ease when there is no division. Division brings on all the feelings of lack, insufficiency. Division or separating out into this thought of me and mine. Me and my fate, me and my future. Me and my tragedy, or me and my hope. With this division into someone who has all of that, or who can do something about all of that, the dis-ease continues. The insufficiency is not unveiled. So we started by asking, what is love? And we're questioning now whether love can be any attribute or possession of the personality, this way in which we've been conditioned by our needs and wants, and our parents' needs and their wants. Social needs, social pressures, traditions, religious stuff. That's all automatic, that's all compulsive, habitual, addictive and addicting. In that there is no love. We can think that we're in love, use that word, but what is going on is need for attachment, for fulfillment of an insufficiency. And if indeed one has found another human being for the time being, then there's fear of losing, because the deep problem has not been resolved about this deep division. Me apart from you, from the world, from what is not me. So even when there is the promise, locking each other up in the heart, throwing away the key, but the fear lingers. He may get out anyways. Climb through the window. Or she. then I don't think anyone doesn't know, at least from the movies, but probably from one's own life, all that goes on with fear of loss, jealousy. Jealousy, if one has the notion that the mate is interested in someone else. Not just jealousy, outright hatred. People murder each other over that. And did this come out of love? If there had been love, could that ever be turned into something else? Does love have anything to do with enmity? Hating someone? It's not possible, is it? It's said in our poetry and writings and whatnot, love and hate go together. And sometimes the implication is that the stronger and deeper the love, the greater the jealousy and hate, and that the intensity of the jealousy and hate is an indication of the love. No, it's an indication of the strength of the attachment and the strength of the fear of loss. That's what it indicates. The dread of abandonment. And all that is mobilized in an organism when there is fear of not surviving as what one wants to survive as. Aggressive tendencies, violence. So what is love? The good times one has together, the fun. We use that word very, very easily. The good times, the fun we have together becomes the good times and fun we had together as a memory. Can one see that, follow that? And the amazing way, the way brain and organism work together is that remembered fun and good times can evoke vicarious pleasures right now, vicarious feelings, pleasurable feelings throughout the body, and then projecting them into the future. I have to have that again with the same person or with another person, and we feel we are out for more love, or finding someone on whom one projects all of one's yearnings. One says, I'm falling in love with him or her. See, one can look at things deeper than the words, can't one? And deeper yet, all the way at what is moving one. Have we come yet to what love is? Can we say what it is? Or only find out what it is not? Do we want an answer? To find out what love is? realizing all that it is not, that one has labeled love and thought of as love, and not taking it from what somebody says, but examining it oneself in depth as one goes along, and leave that question open, what love is. Maybe it is not knowable. Maybe it is not describable. Imaginable, it is not. Maybe it only functions and works in ways that are unknowable. Not linked with my neediness or my desires or attachments. Okay. Does the question come up whether there can be freedom from insufficiency, need for attachment, fear of loss, fear of abandonment? Find out whether there can be freedom from that. But will one project the freedom and yearn now to have that? Or look at the bondage in which we live openly, freely, without fear of what turns up? Looking at it completely, without separation, without running away, no escape. Just this. In such looking, can there be love? Not love for myself, but love in looking at what ails human beings. And divides human beings in opposing camps, conflicting camps. Can there be love in looking at all that? Meaning no finger pointing, no blame, no antagonism. Just a loving looking at what is going on in oneself and every other human being all over the world, since time immemorial. We will end here for today.